The Vexor scouts emerged from their vessel like predatory insects, sleek, efficient, and utterly without mercy. Their armor gleamed dully in the strange half-light of the storm's lull phase, and their weapons hummed with barely contained energy. 3 of them approached, while a 4th remained by the ship, monitoring communications. "Princess Valara," the lead scout announced, voice distorted through translation circuits. "By order of the Azurite Provisional Council, you are charged with treason and theft of state secrets. The only traitors are those who sold our world to the Vexor Imperium," Valara replied, her voice carrying the full weight of royal authority despite her disheveled appearance. Niran stood slightly behind her, the modified device concealed in his hand. He'd never imagined his botanical research would become a component in an interplanetary political struggle, yet here he was, calculating the precise moment to activate their only defense. "The human will be processed as an accomplice," another scout declared, raising a weapon that pulsed with ominous energy. "Now, Niran," Valara shouted. Niran activated the device. Immediately, the desert around them seemed to shimmer as the modified plant cells released their redirected energy in a cascading wave. The scouts' weapons sputtered and died, their armor systems flickering erratically. Taking advantage of their confusion, Valara moved with startling speed, disabling 2 scouts with precise strikes to vulnerability points in their armor that only someone with intimate knowledge of their design would know. Niran managed to tackle the 3rd, using his environment suit's reinforced gloves to short-circuit the scouts' helmet systems. The 4th scout by the ship raised the alarm, but the building storm was already interfering with their communications. A wall of sand approached from the east, promising to engulf them all within minutes. "Their main force will break through the interference eventually," Valara said breathlessly, helping Niran to his feet. "But not before the 2nd wave hits." "Then we need to be gone before that happens," Niran replied, eyeing the scout vessel. "Can you fly that?" A smile spread across Valara's face, the first genuine, unguarded smile he'd seen from her. "Can I fly it? I designed the prototype for these interceptors before my 16th cycle. They worked quickly, Valara disabling tracking systems while Niran salvaged what he could from his research camp. Specimens, data cores, and personal items. The storm front was nearly upon them when they finally sealed the ship's hatch. "Where to?" Niran asked as Valara's hands danced across the unfamiliar controls with practiced ease. She hesitated. "I must return to Azurite eventually. The evidence I carry must reach those still loyal to my family." "I understand," Niran said, though he couldn't quite hide his disappointment. Valara reached across to take his hand, her patterns swirling with complex emotions. "But the direct route is too predictable. We'll need to take a more circuitous path." Her amber eyes held his. "Perhaps through the Terran Science Outpost in the Cygnus sector? I hear they're doing groundbreaking work on interspecies botanical adaptation." Understanding dawned on Niran. "That's where my research was headed next," he said. "It could take months to properly analyze the specimens there." "Months," Valara agreed, her patterns brightening. "Perhaps longer. Diplomatic relations between our worlds would benefit from extended cultural exchange." The ship lifted off as the storm engulfed Niran's abandoned camp, erasing all evidence of their time there. Rising above the clouds, the stolen vessel broke free of the planet's atmosphere, 2 unlikely companions aboard. In the navigation bay, Valara programmed their course while Niran secured his specimens. When he joined her at the controls, she turned to him with an expression that transcended her alien features. "Hope. My people have a tradition," she said, taking both his hands in hers. "When paths cross in unlikely places, it is not chance but destiny weaving its pattern." "Earth has similar beliefs," Niran replied. "We call them soulmates, 2 parts of a whole that find each other across any distance." The stars spread before them through the view screen, countless worlds and possibilities. Valara's patterns synchronized once more with Niran's heartbeat, creating a harmony unique in the universe. "The storm brought us together," she said, her voice soft. "But what comes next we choose." Niran smiled, drawing her closer. "Then let's choose together." As the ship accelerated toward distant stars, the Crimson Desert continued its timeless cycle of storms and stillness far below. The tent where 2 beings from different worlds had found each other was gone, buried beneath shifting sands. But what had begun there, a connection across differences, understanding beyond words, continued. like a rare desert bloom that survives against impossible odds. Some stories begin in storms but find their way to clearer skies. For Niran and Valara, the journey was just beginning, written not in sand that could be swept away, but in the enduring language of hearts that recognize each other, even across the stars. The end. Midnight brought a dangerous drop in temperature, a common but deadly desert phenomenon. Inside the damaged tent, the heating system struggled against the increasing cold. Niran checked the external sensors with growing concern. -20 and dropping, he reported, his breath visible. The storm is creating a thermal inversion. Valara's luminescent patterns had dimmed to conserve energy, making her purple skin appear deeper in the low emergency lighting. Your technology is failing, she observed, unable to hide the slight tremor in her voice. The main power cells were damaged when the pole collapsed, Niran explained, rummaging through his equipment. The backup system wasn't designed for temperatures this extreme. Another shudder racked Valara's body. My species evolved on a warmer world, she explained. This cold will become problematic for me before it affects you. Niran had already begun converting his sleeping compartment into a thermal shelter, combining all available insulating materials. We have one option, he said matter-of-factly. Shared body heat in a confined space. It's basic survival. Valara's expression remained unreadable, but her patterns briefly pulsed brighter. You suggest we embrace? I suggest we not die, Niran countered, though he couldn't help a small smile at her formal phrasing. It's either that or freeze before morning. After a moment's hesitation, Valara nodded. On my world, sharing warmth is an act of great intimacy or great mercy. Tonight I accept your mercy, Niran Blackwood. The makeshift thermal shelter was barely large enough for one person, let alone two. They arranged themselves awkwardly at first, trying to maintain some semblance of personal space. But as the temperature continued to plummet, practicality overcame hesitation. Valara's body gradually relaxed against Niran's, her higher natural temperature creating an unexpectedly pleasant exchange of warmth. Your heart, she said quietly, her head resting near his chest. It beats differently than mine. How many do you have? Niran asked. 3, she replied. Smaller, faster. They create a resonance together. After a pause, she added, Would you like to feel them? The scientist in Niran found the offer fascinating. The man found it unexpectedly intimate. He nodded, and Valara guided his hand to places on her torso where he could feel the distinctive triple rhythm of her heartbeats, a fascinating asymmetrical pattern. Remarkable, he whispered, acutely aware of the trust this demonstration represented. Among my people, Valara said, her voice taking on a melodic quality in the darkness. Sharing pulse rhythms is reserved for family and those who might become family. The implication hung in the air between them. Outside, the storm raged undiminished, but inside their small cocoon of warmth, the universe had narrowed to just the two of them. On Earth, Niran found himself saying, We have legends of desert travelers guided to oases by mysterious figures. Some believed they were angels or spirits. He traced a finger along one of her luminescent patterns. I'm beginning to understand how those stories started. Valara's patterns brightened at his touch, following his finger like ripples in water. These patterns are unique to each individual of my kind, she explained. They reveal emotions we might otherwise conceal. What are they revealing now? Niran asked, watching the swirling lights beneath her purple skin. Instead of answering, Valara moved closer, her face inches from his. Your species kisses, does it not? Presses lips together as a sign of affection? We do, Niran confirmed, his voice suddenly hoarse. My people have a similar custom, she said. Though for us, it also creates a brief empathic connection. Would you allow me to show you? The question hung between them for only a moment before Niran nodded. Valara's lips met his, soft and warm, and with the contact came a rush of sensation. Her curiosity, her fear, her growing affection, all washing over him in gentle waves. When they parted, Niran remained speechless, overwhelmed by the experience. That was, he finally managed. Yes, Valara agreed, her patterns now pulsing in a rhythm that somehow matched his heartbeat. It was. The tent creaked ominously around their shelter, but neither paid it much attention anymore. Valara's hand found Niran's in the darkness, their fingers interlacing despite their different anatomies. Through touch, they discovered further similarities and differences, each revelation bringing them closer. As the night deepened, the storm's howl became background noise to whispered conversations, shared warmth, and a connection neither had expected to find at the edge of the Crimson Desert. Two beings from different worlds, finding in each other something rare and precious: understanding. The first light of dawn filtered through the tent's damaged fabric, casting dappled patterns across the sleeping forms of Niran and Valara. Their makeshift shelter had preserved enough warmth for survival, though the tent itself had suffered further damage during the night. Niran woke first, momentarily disoriented by the weight of Valara's head on his chest. Her silver-white hair spread across him like a luminous blanket. The events of the previous night returned in a rush of memory. Their conversations, the empathic kiss, the gradual dissolution of barriers between them. He watched the gentle pulsing of her patterns, now synchronized with his own heartbeat, and felt something he hadn't experienced in years of solitary research: connection. Valara stirred, her amber eyes opening to meet his. For a moment neither spoke, the silence holding the weight of unasked questions. "The storm," she finally said, her voice still husky from sleep. "It seems quieter." Niran listened. The constant roar had indeed diminished to an intermittent howl. It might be in a lull phase. Some megastorms have cycles. Carefully extracting himself from their shared warmth, Niran checked the monitoring equipment. Most systems were offline, but the atmospheric sensor still functioned. "Pressure's rising," he confirmed. "The worst has passed, at least temporarily." Valara sat up, attempting to restore some order to her appearance. Her regal bearing returned gradually, though something had fundamentally shifted in her demeanor toward him. "Last night," she began, then hesitated. "On my world, what happened between us would not be easily dismissed." "Nor on mine," Niran assured her, kneeling beside her. "Whatever this is, whatever we started, I don't regret it." A fleeting smile crossed her face, her patterns brightening momentarily before concern shadowed her expression. "My pursuers will not have been deterred by the storm. Their tracking capabilities are persistent." "Let me check outside," Niran offered. "Assess the damage, see what we're dealing with." The world beyond the tent entrance was transformed. Dunes had shifted, revealing previously buried rock formations. The acid rain had created glassy patches on exposed surfaces, and Niran's research equipment lay scattered and partially buried. His rover was completely covered in sand. Most concerning, however, was the dark speck on the horizon, rapidly growing larger. "Valara," he called urgently, retreating into the tent. "We have company." She joined him at the entrance, her body tensing as she spotted the approaching craft. "Vexor scouts," she confirmed grimly. "Advance reconnaissance. The main force won't be far behind." "What exactly are we facing?" Niran asked, already gathering what functioning equipment remained. "The scouts carry disintegration weapons. The main force will bring neural scramblers and stasis fields." Her expression hardened. "They want me alive, but will eliminate any witnesses." "Cheery bunch," Niran muttered, examining a handheld scanner. "How far can we get on foot?" "Not far enough," Valara replied. She turned to him, her expression resolute yet tender. "You should hide. Deny any knowledge of me. As a xenobotanist with no political value, they might spare you." Niran's response was to reach for her hand, their fingers intertwining naturally now. "You know that's not happening." "Niran, you don't understand what they're capable of." I understand enough," he interrupted. "Besides, I think I might have an advantage they don't expect." Valara's expression turned quizzical. "What advantage could you possibly have against Vexor technology?" Niran smiled, retrieving a seemingly ordinary sample case from beneath the damaged equipment. "Remember those plants I was studying? The ones that convert radiation to nutrients?" He opened the case, revealing several preserved specimens. "They don't just convert radiation, they can redirect it." Understanding dawned in Valara's eyes. "You're suggesting we use plant life as a weapon?" "Not exactly a weapon," Niran corrected. "More like a shield. If I can recalibrate my analysis equipment to amplify their natural properties, it could disrupt the Vexor's targeting systems." Valara finished, a spark of hope igniting. Their weapons all rely on precise energy modulation. They worked feverishly as the scout ship grew closer, Niran modifying his equipment while Valara cannibalized components from her damaged weapon. The storm had begun to intensify again, a secondary wave building on the horizon. Ready? Niran asked, the makeshift device humming between them. Valara nodded, then suddenly pulled him into an embrace. Whatever happens, she whispered against his ear, know that meeting you has changed me, Niran Blackwood. Before he could respond, the ground shook with the landing of the scout ship. Outside, harsh voices called commands in a language Niran didn't recognize. Together, then, he said, activating the device as they stepped out to face what came. The crimson desert stretched like a copper ocean before Niran Blackwood, its dunes rippling under the merciless twin suns. 3 weeks into his expedition, the xenobotanist had collected specimens of 17 previously undocumented plant species that somehow thrived in this harsh environment. His research station, little more than a reinforced tent and portable laboratory, sat nestled between 2 towering rock formations that offered minimal protection from the elements. Niran wiped sweat from his brow as he carefully logged data about a particularly resilient succulent. Its translucent leaves captured and magnified sunlight in a way he'd never encountered on Earth or any of the 7 colonies. This discovery alone would justify the funding for his solo mission. Fascinating adaptation, he murmured to himself, adjusting his recording equipment. The cellular structure seems to convert excess heat into... The rapid beeping of his weather monitor interrupted his observations. Niran frowned, checking the atmospheric readings with growing concern. The numbers didn't make sense, pressure dropping catastrophically, wind speeds climbing beyond seasonal parameters. That can't be right, he muttered, tapping the screen. The equipment was rated for extreme environments, rarely malfunctioning. When he stepped outside, the horizon confirmed his worst fears. A wall of swirling crimson sand loomed in the distance, towering impossibly high. A megastorm, unpredicted and advancing rapidly. These deadly weather events were legendary among desert researchers, capable of burying entire expeditions beneath tons of abrasive sand. Damn it! Niran abandoned his samples, scrambling to secure his equipment. The tent's anchors needed reinforcement, the solar panels required protection, and his specimens, 3 weeks of irreplaceable work, had to be sealed in protective containers. The wind picked up as he worked frantically, sand already stinging his exposed skin. He had perhaps 15 minutes before the full force hit. Niran had just finished securing the last anchor, when an unfamiliar sound cut through the rising howl of the wind. The whine of ion propulsion. Failing and sputtering, he shielded his eyes, looking up to see a small craft careening through the air, trailing smoke and debris. The vessel, clearly not of Earth design, spun wildly before crashing beyond the nearest dune. Niran hesitated only a moment before grabbing his emergency kit. Someone had just crash-landed in the path of a megastorm. By the time he reached the wreckage, the wind was strong enough to nearly knock him off his feet. The craft was unlike any he'd seen, sleek with an iridescent hull that shimmered despite the damage. As he approached, a section of the hull slid open and a figure stumbled out. She was unmistakably not human. Her skin was a deep purple with subtle luminescent patterns that shifted across her exposed arms. Silver-white hair whipped around a face with features just alien enough to create an uncanny beauty. High cheekbones, slightly elongated eyes of brilliant amber, and markings that might have been ceremonial or natural. Niran couldn't tell. "Stay back," she called out in perfect English, though her voice carried harmonic undertones impossible for a human throat to produce. She held a small device that Niran immediately recognized as a weapon. "There's a storm coming," Niran shouted over the wind. "A deadly one. You need shelter now." The alien woman glanced at the approaching wall of sand, then back at Niran, conflict evident in her expression. "I have a reinforced tent," he continued, pointing toward his camp. "It's your only chance to survive this." A particularly violent gust nearly toppled them both, and the decision was made for her. The alien woman nodded, tucking her weapon away. "Lead on, human," she said, her voice carrying both command and vulnerability. "I am Valara of House Luminar, and it seems I am at your mercy." The first drops of acid rain began to fall as they raced toward the tent, the megastorm swallowing the horizon behind them. The tent groaned under the assault of the megastorm. Sand particles peppered the reinforced fabric like miniature bullets, while acid rain created an eerie, hissing percussion outside. Inside, the small space felt impossibly cramped with 2 occupants, particularly when one kept glancing suspiciously at the other. Your shelter is adequate, Valara said, her amber eyes scanning the cramped interior. She sat rigidly on a storage container, maintaining maximum distance from Neron in the limited space. It's designed to withstand extreme conditions, Neron replied, checking the tent's integrity monitors. But I've never seen readings like these. This storm could last days. Days? Valara's luminescent patterns flared briefly, an emotional response, Neron guessed. That is problematic. More problematic than crash landing on a planet in the middle of nowhere. Neron couldn't help asking. He offered her a sealed water container, which she examined carefully before accepting. The tent shuddered violently, forcing Valara to brace herself. A momentary fear flashed across her face before the regal composure returned. You're injured, Neron observed, noticing the dark fluid seeping through her ornate garment at the shoulder. It's nothing, she said quickly, shifting to hide the wound. I have medical supplies, Neron said, already reaching for his kit. I'm not familiar with your physiology, but antiseptic and bandages work on most species. Are all humans this insistent on helping strangers who point weapons at them? Valara asked, a hint of curiosity breaking through her guard. Neron shrugged. Scientist's habit. Curious by nature. After some reluctance, Valara allowed him to clean and dress the wound. Her skin was warmer than human temperature, and the patterns beneath it pulsed gently under his touch. Neron maintained professional detachment, though he couldn't help noting the anatomical similarities and fascinating differences. You're a long way from Earth, Valara said as he worked. Why alone in this wasteland? The Crimson Desert has plant life unlike anything in charted space, Neron explained, his passion evident. Organisms that convert radiation to nutrients, flora with silicon-based cellular structures, discoveries that could transform colonial agriculture. So you risk your life. For plants? The concept seemed to genuinely perplex her. Knowledge is worth some risk, he responded, though I didn't plan on facing a megastorm or meeting an alien princess today. Valara tensed. How did you... The way you speak. The design of your vessel. The material of your clothing, Neron explained. I've studied enough xenoanthropology to recognize royal indicators across several species. The tent rattled violently, and a small tear appeared in one seam, immediately releasing a spray of fine sand. Valara moved with surprising speed, pressing her palm against the breach. Neron quickly applied a repair patch, their hands brushing in the process. Thank you, he said quietly. The storm's howl intensified, and the lights flickered ominously. With the power threatening to fail, the temperature would soon become a serious concern. I should tell you, Valara said after a long silence, her voice barely audible above the storm. There are people looking for me, dangerous people. I gathered that from the crash and the weapon, Neron said. Political trouble? Valara's laugh held no humor. My own council orchestrated a coup. They've aligned with the Vexor Imperium, a violation of everything my family has protected for generations. Her patterns dimmed. I escaped with evidence of their treason, but my ship was damaged in pursuit. And now you're stuck in a tent with a random human botanist during the worst storm in recorded history, Neron finished. Sometimes the universe has strange plans. My people have a saying, Valara said, her expression softening slightly. The cosmic winds blow strangers together for reasons beyond understanding. Another violent gust rocked the tent, and one of the support poles cracked. The structure lurched dangerously, forcing Neron and Valara to grab the same central post to stabilize it. They found themselves inches apart, the princess's subtle, spice-like scent surprisingly pleasant. We need to reinforce that break, Neron said, suddenly aware of their proximity, or we won't survive the night. Then we work together, Valara replied, her amber eyes meeting his. For survival. Outside, the storm reached a deafening crescendo, but inside the tent, something unexpected had begun to grow, fragile as a desert bloom, and just as determined to survive.